Welcome back to another episode of Get to Know the Pros. Today, we've got Mike joining us. For those of you watching or listening on the podcast, you will be familiar with Mike because he participated in our Finding and Getting to Know Your Mentors, or mentors in general, session. I think it was about a month ago or a month and a half ago, Mike, right?
Yeah, just a little bit ago.
So, Mike von Bevern, why don't you introduce your company? Take a couple of minutes, let us know company, where you're from, kind of work you do, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my name's Mike von Bevern. I'm the owner operator of Glendale Landscapes. We're a landscape construction and horticultural type services firm located in upstate New York. Not New York City, but the more northern portion of New York, if you will. Kind of a small community, not a huge population. I mean, we got about 100,000 people in our local metro area, so we have the benefits of small town, but also we have a little bit bigger of a market. So I've been doing it for, geez, this is going on 17, 18 years. Most of those times were part-time. Primarily an owner operator. I have a little bit of summer help, typically from May to end of August. I have a couple part-time people, typically college students and stuff, that will help us with larger projects. But the rest of the year, it's just me, and I'm kind of just enjoying that whole entire experience right now.
You've been you were part time running this business in a part time capacity for a lot of those 17 years. What was that trigger point for you when you decided, now this I got to do this full time?
I may have a unique story. Maybe it's not that unique. Depending, maybe some other people that are watching or listening to this might be able to connect with it. But when I started out, it was me and a close friend of mine, and it was really just a side hustle. We were mow, trim, blow, very, very, very little landscape. We mowed like maybe 35, 40 accounts for a good chunk of it. And we were unofficial business partners. But like I said, it was just kind of a side hustle. We made some money, stuck some in our pocket, reinvested in some equipment. And I think kind of the tipping point was back in 2016, where I started seeing some opportunities for growth and some ways that we could do more with less. We could get into some more profitable work. And the guy that I was working with actually was a little bit hesitant to get into like some of the commercial stuff and to get more into the landscaping side. So at that point, I guess you could say we split. I mean, we're still good friends. He still kind of does his thing on the side, but that's where that's where Glendale Landscapes truly was born at that point. So I jumped into it in 2016, 2017, still on a part-time basis. And then 2018, I went full-time with it. And kind of the tipping point on going full-time was I was seeing the opportunity to pretty much replace my full-time job with revenue from doing landscape jobs. And it was a personal freedom thing, honestly. I don't want to say that it was easier to go out on my own. There's definitely a whole lot of struggles I could talk about all night long. But yeah, it was a personal freedom thing. I wanted to have a little bit more control over my life, my schedule, when I could work, what days I could work, things along those lines. So that was my primary driver. It really wasn't, oh my goodness, I can go become an overnight millionaire. It wasn't really that. It was just kind of taking control and having a little bit more say in my own time management. So,
That's a good reason to want to be self-employed. But I can tell you from personal experience and all of the interviews that I've done over the years with Echo Means Business, is that there's a draw to being self-employed, which is partially about the idea of being able to make more money, the idea of freedom, owning your own time, doing what you want to do when you want to do it. But there's a reality that sets in pretty quick, I found afterwards. I'm wondering if you had the same experience. And that is that, yeah, you can do
yep.
whatever you want, uh, but there's also potentially no revenue on the other side of that. There's this pressure that you feel on yourself constantly that just doesn't go away. This is never a 9 to 5 thing when you run your own business. It's always a 24-hour worry. Did you, were you hit with that reality check when you went full time after a couple of months?
Yeah, 2018 started off really, really good until the end of the season, and then it was like, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen here. And I wasn't really positioned on the snow removal side like I should have been. And to be honest, I really didn't have a good handle on exactly what my true numbers were. I mean, I know that's cliche, everyone's talking about it, but I didn't really understand what the definition of true profit was.
Hmm.
It was, you know, do a job for $1,000, $300 of material. I was telling people, oh, I made $700 on that job, and that's not the case at all. I mean, that's so far removed from the truth. So, yeah, 18 was a little rough going in the winter, but you know, my full time job before doing this was a paramedic, and I still moonlight and do that. So thankfully, in 2018, in the winter when I wasn't really completely prepared, I was able to pick up a couple more shifts and work a little bit more at my previous full time job to kind of bridge me over. But it's a constant thing. It wasn't a one time deal. I mean, even the past couple weeks here, everyone's going really, really hard through the spring and the first part of the summer. And at some point, you get tired and you need to take a break, which is what everyone knows. Well, you know what you're supposed to do: take a break and recharge. But how are you going to bridge that financial gap necessarily when you are taking a break? So, yeah, you hit it right on the head. It's a constant thing. It's always on your mind. But the big thing I can tell people is this irrational fear of running out of work is it doesn't exist. You're not going
There's enough work out there for anybody that wants to hustle for it. There's no
to.
question about that. I like the fact that, well, I mean, I'm sorry that you had to go through it, but I think one of the biggest challenges that most people in this industry find are two. So if I have to like go back to all of the interviews that I've done on this topic, uh, not understanding the off season, not understanding that what it's going to be like to live in the off season if you haven't planned for it properly. What's the saying? There's like for every 100 lawn care professionals there are in May, there's like 2 left in September. So you don't understand always when you're planning this business that you got to plan for 12 months, not just for 6 months, and what's going to happen in those other 6 months or 4 months, depending upon the time, where you are in the country. But the other one is knowing your numbers, knowing your worth. In fact, we did, for those of you listening, if you're interested in that topic and understanding your worth, we did a live session that's now on our podcast as well as on our website, Echo Means Business. It's called Know Your Worth. It's under Pro Networking with Mike Vidal, Chris Sloan, Jensen Martinez, Tino Cardoso, and Jarsh Caravan. So we had 5 pros who really broke down what it takes to understand your numbers. That it's not just about, here's my time for the day and here's my revenue, but all of the costs between insurance, cost of materials, and employees, advertising, everything that goes into those numbers. So yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I had that same reality check, and I was lucky in a way. I started my business when I was 17 years old. But I had a couple of good mentors to walk me through it. And I was young enough that I could recover from my failures. A lot of times when guys in this industry started late, it's very difficult to have that time to recover from that failure.
Absolutely.
So why don't, so you're still a solopreneur for the most part. Is that your plan to stay like that? Are you satisfied with a business like that?
You asked that question at a very interesting time. So I have a 5 year plan, and I'm about 2 years into that 5 year plan. And part of that kind of included me being able to have a full time person year round, which I still may do. But employees are tough. There's It's a tough thing to juggle and balance. And I think as a owner or an entrepreneur, when you bring help on, I think there's a lot of things you got to go work through. I know me personally, I struggle a lot of times with, feeling like, man, why am I paying people to help me? I could get this done just as quick without them. And truthfully, you got to go through a lot of self discovery on that, where you need to realize that sometimes the problem isn't so much them, it's you. And man, letting go is so hard. I try to sit there, and I guess my benchmark is if they can do it 75 to 80% as good as I can, that's just what I have to live with. So yeah, my plan, my 5-year plan was to have a full time year round person, and still continue with summer help, which would allow me in the summertime to either go work on other projects, do some of the back end stuff, and maybe just take a little bit of a break. And then after summer, it would be me and that full time person. So that's still the plan, but it's a constant thing that I'm evaluating. Right now I have help, and I have some of that, frustrations with payroll and overhead associated with having a couple people. And it's pressure. It's pressure to perform. It's pressure to get work done. Because they get paid on Thursday, I don't necessarily get paid if things don't go well. So that's a lot of weight to wear. But I'm going to work through it, and I think I'll hold the course. I think that's my long-term goal, over the next 5 years, to have a full-time person and have that person be able to go run a crew. You know, Big dreams, long-range stuff. I don't really want to have a huge operation. I mean, I guess I kind of thought, you know, big plans down the road would probably just be, maybe 2 or 3 crews tops. I have no desire to have a big operation. I just don't think personally that I'm the type of person that I could manage that effectively. Just knowing my strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah. That's a sign of both a strong and an intelligent man to understand what your limitations are, but also understand what you want out of life. The bigger the operation, the bigger the challenges. And yeah, there are some additional benefits that come with a bigger operation, but there's also a lot of additional headaches. Talk about reality checks when you start running a business. The concept that you always have to pay your employees, but never know if you're going to get paid. And you're right, that pressure, and I'm over 50 now, and I've been running my own business since I was 18. So I can tell you over those years, I've grown my employee base, and every new employee that comes on adds another layer of gray hair onto my head, because of the stress that comes along with my responsibility is to make sure their families are fed, not just mine. So it's that, so with all of the extra benefits comes a lot of extra pressures. You need to understand, what do you want out of life? How much of your time do you want to spend focusing on a business versus, focusing on a personal life?
Yeah, I've been blessed where I know some people that have some bigger companies. A good friend of mine owns it's a family-owned company, but it's about a $25 million a year civil construction excavation company, and they started out probably 30 years ago, I think, just doing concrete sidewalks. And he tells me all the time, if he could stop the runaway train, he would go back to a much smaller operation. He said bigger is definitely not always better and not always more profitable.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's important to state here that, I don't think any of us are advocating not trying to grow your business and that there isn't benefits there if that's what you want. I think what's important is that, as you can hear from what Mike said, a lot of times people get there and don't like it. I had a great conversation with Josh Curvan on that, who grew his business to the point where it just got completely overwhelming for him, and he had to almost shut it down, and he brought it back down to a small crew again. I've had so many of these stories where people have had that success of having multiple crews, but they realize that it does become a bit of a runaway train sometimes, as you aptly said. So you just got to know what that is for you, and keep that reality check is this worth it? Is the extra revenue, if you're in fact making extra revenue or extra profit, so once you know your numbers, is it actually worth the extra time that I have to put in and the extra stress? I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said for many years you and your buddy there were working just this as a side hustle, mow and blow type operation. Yet you're becoming known from your audience, or your clients anyway, as a bit of a plant connoisseur. I took a look at a lot of the reviews that you have on your site. So how did you go from this as a side hustle to now being known for your knowledge around plants? Did that just kind of happen naturally, or did you take any kind of course?
So I think I'm a self-study. I definitely am not a degreed horticulturist by any means, but the Mike Bedells of the world, some other people, just picking their brain. There's a lot of online programs that you can kind of self-study over the winter and stuff. Here locally in New York, there's the New York State Nursery and Landscape Association. They have some training programs. National, the NLAP, they have some stuff too. And you can kind of self-study some stuff. They have some certification things that you can go through. So that's what I just started kind of doing on pretty much the winter times, is I would just kind of make a goal to learn a couple different things. Honestly, my transition from lawn care to landscaping was, there was a period of time where about half of our work was weekly, lawn service, but then I filled up the other half of the week with landscape cleanouts, mulch jobs, hedge trimming and stuff. And what I noticed when I took on a lot of these jobs is people say, well, don't cut this back so far. The last guy almost killed it. So I made it a point to kind of learn what bloomed when and what not to hack back. And that's kind of where it transitioned at. And then I think that the pivot point for me, lawn care wise, was just, I wasn't really passionate about it. I felt like, my skill set could be used in a different direction in the green industry. And I noticed that a lot of people, there's a high demand in spring and early summer for landscaping and horticultural type stuff, but I'm the only landscaper in my market that doesn't mow lawns. So I have a lot of opportunity that comes my way in April and May. A lot of it's referral work from other landscapers that are just buried because they're mowing every 5 days. They can't get to the landscape installs and stuff like that. So, it just kind of happened. Talking to my parents and some neighbors in my parents' neighborhood. Apparently, I always was kind of into it as a kid, and I didn't realize it. I guess I must have just blocked that out, but maybe I innately have some passion there. But yeah, it was just that transition. It was on the maintenance side, and it was just not wanting to do a bad job. I was just trying to be a little bit more knowledgeable than the next guy.
That's I think it's a fantastic story to understand your niche, because too many people that go into this industry just automatically start thinking mowing, because it's one of the easiest things I'm assuming to do, but you've also got a greater amount of competition, and potentially lower margins, right? Do you find that focusing on the landscape side of it and removing mowing completely helps raise your margins in the
Oh,
work that
absolutely.
you do?
Yep. That was a pivotal, as far, I mean, top line doesn't mean anything, and I don't want people to focus on top line, but that was a major point that took us from tripling top line revenue, but in turn, not only tripling top line revenue, going from running a really low margin on lawn care to, I mean, some of the stuff, there's some portions of what I do that's, easily, 30-40%. Um, you don't always hit that. Sometimes things go wrong, but yeah, there's just less people doing it. And if you have the skill, the knowledge, and you have the ability to get in there and do the work, you can kind of, name your price.
Yeah, Nicole Sutterfield, the landscape manicurist, is one of our UAG members, and she's actually created an incredible niche for herself. For those of you listening, check out the landscape manicurist Nicole Sutterfield on Echo Means Business Profiles in our member directory. You'll find that what she's done, and I'm wondering, Mike, this sounds like you've done something similar in terms of what you focus on in your niche, is she does the same thing. She does not mow. All she does, actually, she goes in after the guys have mowed, and then she basically cleans up after them. And then she focuses her attention on the mulch jobs, on the plants, and manicuring them. That's why she went one of the. It's a long story, but her title, the landscape manicurist, she basically takes what they've done and then just shines it up and takes it to the next level so that they can focus on volume, right? Because with lawn care, guys, as you know, it's root density. Get as
Yep.
many properties in the smallest number of areas as possible, get that volume up, and that's how you make the money. But then you can't take the time that you're talking about to do that detailed work and
Yep.
make it look like $1 million. And she does the same thing, from what I understand, and that was a lot of her work comes as referrals, and referrals from lawn care pros. So it's a nice symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I do almost no. I don't advertise actually at all. I never really, aside from yard signs and some decals on a trailer, that was the only advertising that I ever did. And to be honest with you, I don't really even do too. I peeled my stickers off of my stuff because I don't have the capacity to take on any more work. And what I found is that if people are calling and you can't get back to them, even if you're not interested, that's a bad look. It took me
Mm.
a little while to realize that, but just just being in demand and not being able to just tell people we're not the right fit, um, that starts to put you in a bad light. When people talk in small circles and say, "Well, I got a hold of so and so, but I never heard back from them." Well, okay, you might have been filled up on work and you might not have been able to help them out, but you don't realize you're creating a negative image of your company. You're being known as the person that just doesn't call people back. And I was there. Truthfully, I mean, I remember a couple, I don't know if it was 19 or 20, or no, it was 19. My voicemail box was full for a good chunk of the summer. And that's how I was kind of managing not being able to take on any more work, was people couldn't even leave a message. And that's, don't do that. That is not a pro tip. That's going in the wrong direction for sure.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's solid advice. Solid advice. Mike, I've had a great time listening to you talk a little bit about your business, and I think this is some valuable insight for those listening that maybe don't have the same number of years of experience or looking to grow their business. Um, but just before we let you go, I want to switch a little bit. It sounds like, being a solopreneur in particular, you've got a lot of work on your plate. You've also keep yourself busy with snow removal. You're in upstate New York, so obviously you're getting that snow. So you're busy all the time. But how do you unwind? We've been talking about the stress of running your own business. There's got to be something that you do, outside of work hours, on the weekends or whenever it is that you take some downtime. What is that?
so
Do you
I'm
ballroom dance or do you hunt? Give us a sense.
yeah. So this is still something that I'm figuring out. What I'm pretty good at is disconnecting and taking time for myself. I have a couple things that I do. Um, when I come when I'm done for the day, I leave my phone in my truck for 45 minutes to an hour. And I just try to take an hour of uninterrupted time. I started to learn, the longer that I did this, that you're really not that more productive by working till 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes you're better off being well rested, getting up at 7, hitting it hard till 5, and just calling it a day, and having a cycle. What I found was, when you sat there and you're burning the midnight oil always, it just, you don't get that much more done. But I'm going in the wrong direction from your question. Unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of hobbies, other than I'm completely engrossed in just kind of trying to make this whole entire thing called Glendale Landscapes work. But I do take some time for myself. I got 2 boys. I try to spend some time with them. I do a little bit of kayaking. Enjoy kind of not any hardcore hiking, but there's a couple parks and stuff like that around us. So I'll take a night or a Saturday sometimes and just go explore that, go walk some trails, and do that. So I'm still trying to find. I got to find a passion. I got to find a thing that the why, if you will, of why to work so hard, so that I can disconnect and go do something fun. But yeah, it's pretty much just trying to balance work and kids and stuff like that. So
That is a very important thing to have in your life. Whatever that passion is, find it. Now, not everybody has to have it, so it's like don't go making something up, but finding something that you are passionate about that you can do that balances out that stress is really important. And you dropped another truth bomb there, and that is that the longer, just because you're working more hours doesn't mean you're working smarter or better or making more money. There's no question that focusing your time and being more alert and more on it in a shorter period of time could actually make you more productive and thus more profitable in those same hours.
intentional, being intentional with your time.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the idea of just leaving your phone in the truck. I can see that you're in the landscaper office right now, which is typically someone's truck. Um, leaving it in the office, or your truck, as the case may be, I think is a brilliant idea for an hour. Having that digital break,
Yep.
you know what I mean, is I think an important thing for your mental health as well as for your productivity and personal well-being. Uh, y- but speaking of which, you don't actually spend a lot of time on social media, like a lot of pros in this industry do. Is that also intentional?
Um, yes. Now it kind of is. And don't get me wrong. I wanna ramp some stuff up, but I want to almost kind of have a brand or a plan with that, and I haven't gotten to that point. Um, I enjoy viewing content and seeing what other people are out there. I have a hard time. I get in work mode, and I have a hard time stopping to take pictures and post and stuff. And then, I think like any social media realm in any industry, there's a lot of. Give me a second to think of the politically correct term here, Sam. Trolls, we'll call them, that are out there, and I sit there and I'm like, well, you know what? I don't know if I necessarily want to be that much in the limelight, but we'll see. I talked to Mike Bedell, and him and I've helped him with some of his debt-free landscaper stuff, and sometimes we chat quite a bit off air about different things, and we've talked about doing some things, but it's just once again being intentional. If you want to do social media, you have to go and make that a priority, and that hasn't found its way into my time slots in the day yet.
Yeah.
Is developing content, but um, it's something that you may see me pop up more on it, especially if I end up. I would say if I had a full-time person and I had a crew that was able to go out and get some things done, I could definitely see myself doing a little bit more of that.
Yeah, there's no question that the more time you spend on social media, uh, and the more well known you get on social media, the more the trolls will come out, and the more drama that seems to uh, circle those people that purposely make an effort to become social media famous. So that's it becomes a whole job managing that crap in and itself, let alone what you actually do to make a living, which is in your case landscapes. Well, Mike von Bevern from Glendale Landscapes, thank you very much for taking the time to allow the rest of our community to get to know you a little bit better. This is another one in our series of Get to Know the Pros interviews where we try and lift the hood, as the case may be, on some of our pros that are in our community at Echo Means Business. So if you want to get to know Mike a little bit more than this, find his profile in our member directory. Echo Means Business now allows you to connect directly, instant message them if you want, follow them, develop those connections, and help each other grow your businesses, which is what we're all about here at EMB. Pros by the pros for the pros. So thanks, Mike. Have yourself a great day, and we'll talk to everybody again soon.
All right. Thanks for your time.